Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 29th and tonight's movie is Found Footage 3D. The movie just sounds so gimmicky. They didn't even give it a title. They just told you what it is. Found Footage 3D. It sounds very gimmicky, but apparently this movie is good. Technically, this has the highest Rotten Tomatoes score out of any movie I've watched this month, with 100%. Granted, it did have like 5 reviews, so take that with a grain of salt, but still, it's something. I'm not going to be watching it in 3D. There apparently is the option, but I assume that would mean buying my own 3D glasses for a movie that's already costing me money so I can sit down in my house and watch a movie in 3D on my computer, and I don't really like that proposition, so I'm just going to watch it in 2D. The plot of Found Footage 3D is that this group of filmmakers are going to make the first ever 3D found footage movie, which is why the entire movie is shot in 3D. This movie's a lot like Butterfly Kisses in the fact that they are aware of like the tropes and types of like stereotypes that come with found footage. In the trailer they were talking about we need to answer 2 questions. 1, why are the characters filming everything? And 2, why do the characters continue filming things even when people start dying? They are aware of the tropes of found footage, but apparently their horror movie starts to become like a horror reality when things start happening, and apparently they're shooting in an actually haunted house. There are a lot of very self-aware horror movies, some better than others, but this might be the first like really self-aware found footage movie I've watched that I can think of. This looks interesting, so I'm gonna watch the movie and I'll let you know what I think. Alright, I see what they did there. Found Footage 3D gets a 9 out of 10 for me. It was very good, a lot better than I was expecting, to be honest. There are some problems here and there, but the ideas in this movie and the execution was done so well. First of all, I would like to drive home how completely just a gimmick the 3D is. Again, this movie is very self-aware, so they have the discussion, the filmmakers are talking about, we need something to make this movie stand out. We gotta be the first to do something. And they decided the first thing they were gonna do was make the first ever 3D found footage movie. And it was just as pointless for the movie in the movie to be 3D as it was for the movie itself to be in 3D. So even though it was self-aware that it was using a blatant gimmick, it still used a blatant gimmick. But anyway, on to the movie itself. This movie did a lot of what I really liked in Be My Cat, A Film for Anne, in the fact that there is a movie within the movie. But a lot of times when they're filming that movie, it's hard to tell how much of that is fake and how much of that is real. Like, emotions from reality bleed into the performances, and you don't really know how much of it is fake and how much of it is real emotion. The 2 main actors in this movie are playing a couple where their relationship is falling apart, and in real life, they are a couple whose relationship is falling apart. And by the way, I think I spoke too soon when I said that Drop the Mic from Followed was the most instantly unlikable character I've seen in any found footage movie. Nope, Derek from Found Footage 3D is the most instantly unlikable character I've seen in any movie in a long time. This guy goes beyond just being a pompous douchebag with no respect for anything. He's just straight up a jackass. I've seen this exact archetype in so many movies. This young, full of himself, thinks he's right about everything, or she, I guess, filmmaker, who thinks they know everything about what to do, and everything has to go their way because they're the ones with the artistic vision. Except in this one, it's not an artistic vision. He freely admits that this is all just to make money. And also, the characters in this found footage movie high-key shade found footage as a genre. Derek, who's also the writer and the main actor of the movie, says that people use found footage to disguise the fact that they don't know how to make movies. And Andrew, the director, says that there were only 2 semi-decent found footage movies ever made, one of which came out 15 years ago. Since this movie was supposed to take place in 2014, I assume he means the Blair Witch Project, and the other one is probably Paranormal Activity. You might see this as a problem because, in a way, that sort of subconsciously means the movie is saying that we're not like other found footage movies. We're not cheap and stupid. We're good. And even though this movie is really good and clever, that is still kind of annoying. One of the most entertaining parts about Found Footage 3D is watching the back and forth between the movie within the movie, which I think is called Spectre of Death 3D, and the reality, which is the movie itself, and the way that, again, the 2 different realities than movies, they sort of bleed into each other. Like Derek and his ex-wife co-star Amy, they'll be fake arguing in the movie, and then it will lead into a real argument in real life. Or there was a point where they asked two old guys who were just sitting by this little corner store in the middle of nowhere to give them like a ominous warning about the location in this context of the movie, and they tried that, and they were horrible at it. They were bad actors, and they did not know how to follow stage directions. It was like watching that baked in a buttery, flaky crust video. But right after, when the scene was done shooting, they were still recording everything to get behind the scenes footage. And they were talking to him and they said, "Oh, you're not going to the blank blank house, are you?" And then they suddenly got really serious and he was like, no, that's a bad place. Don't go there. And it was a lot better than their fake warning. I mean, it's not the most impressively meta layered thing I've seen in a film like this. Butterfly Kisses had 3 layers of movie in a movie in a movie instead of just 2 like in Found Footage 3D. But it's still very interesting to watch, and I wonder why more movies don't do this. This film is also very good with its effects. Most of it is CG, and the way it is used is pretty good. I mean, at some points it can come off as a little fake, but what CGI doesn't? The real scares come from just how much the plot of Spectre of Death 3D really bleeds into the reality for the filmmakers. They'll be recording a scene or talking about something happening in the movie, and something very similar will happen in real life. And as the tension between the two main actors, Derek and his ex-wife, actually I think it was current wife, they're not even divorced yet, Derek and Amy, as their tension grows, so do the supernatural occurrences around them. If you like found footage the way that I do, I would recommend this movie. It has some clever ideas, good characters, even a few moments of comedy, and some pretty good scares overall. But now I want to talk about a few spoilers. The movie within the movie, A Spectre of Death 3D, and by the way, Spectre of Death is one of the most generic movie titles I've ever heard in my life, but whatever. I guess it's supposed to just be a not very good movie, but in Spectre of Death, the thing that's haunting the couple is like a manifestation of their negative energy and hatred towards each other, and that's basically exactly what happens while filming that movie. The more that Derek and Amy fight, the worse the supernatural things get. Derek is clearly the one that's in the wrong in every single incident, and it seems that even the supernatural forces realize this, because the supernatural forces always seem to be backing up Amy. Like, there was a scene where they were supposed to be filming a scene where all the dishes sort of like fly out of the cupboards and crash onto the floor, which is actually a lot like something that happened in Paranormal Activity 2. But they were supposed to be doing that, and something happened and they had to stop the scene, and then Derek and Amy were arguing, and eventually Amy just screams and all the dishes fall anyway, and apparently the rig that set that up wasn't even plugged in. Or, well, there was a point where Amy got really mad at the PA, I think her name was Lily, got really mad at her, and in the movie a shovel was supposed to fall from the ceiling and almost hit Amy's character, but the shovel fell from the ceiling and actually hit Lily in the head, pretty much right in the middle of them arguing. Things like that keep happening, and more of the crew members start to get spooked. One of them just up and leaves. The main cameraman is actually, I believe, Derek's little brother named Mark, and Mark and Amy seem to have like sort of an almost quasi-romance. And it eventually gets to the point where Mark is trying to protect Amy from Derek and from also all the supernatural things that are happening. And this movie is self-aware enough to bring up the fact that, and a lot of times, once people start dying, you think most people would stop recording things and just leave. And most movies need to come up with some sort of excuse for that. But this one, I don't think I've ever seen in another movie before. The paranormal entity, this black, shadowy fog that's haunting the house that they're filming at, apparently it can only be seen when it's being seen through the camera. But on the subjects of things in this movie I didn't really love, it's something that they brought up like halfway through the movie and then they bring it up at the very end. It was like, the number one rule of found footage movies is everybody has to die, which is not true. I mean, yes, usually all the characters die, or like one is like possessed and then runs off, but that's not always the case. There are definitely found footage movies where not all the characters die. The Tunnel, for example, which was released before the movie in the movie, or the movie itself had even begun production. And As Above, So Below, which was released in the same year, surprised me by having 3 of the characters make out of it alive. But anyway, they bring that up at the very end, too. At this point, it's just Mark and Amy. Everybody else has been killed, or at least taken away by the black, shadowy monster. And eventually, it was just, Amy says, "Turn the camera towards me." And one thing they did earlier in the movie is that both Amy and Mark had one of the cameras, and they split the screen showing both feeds going at the same time. But anyway, it ends with him pointing the camera at Amy, and she says, "You forgot the number one rule." And then, which is calling back to the rule saying that everyone has to die. And then she does literally the exact same ending scare as in Paranormal Activity. Her eyes and teeth change into monster eyes and teeth, and she lunges forward towards the camera. Which, for a movie that touts being so original and aware of the tropes in found footage, it's a little weird that they directly lifted an ending scare from a much more famous found footage movie. Or maybe that was their intention, I don't know. Found footage 3D is very interesting because it knows about the ins and outs of the subgenre and does things to try to mislead you or subvert your expectations. It has a good setup, good characters, good acting, good dialogue, and a lot of really clever things are done in this movie, some of which I haven't even talked about. I'd say check it out. Alright, I'll see you tomorrow.